All right, Hotep family, you're tuning into the pro-black perspective on KWZ Radio. Today we're going to go into a new subject, which is called original literature. All right, I'm going to show you guys one of these writings I did maybe 6 years ago while I was still just a new father. And it's really good. I thought it was really good. And I'm thinking that I'm going to return to literature. And so part of me just wants to share with you all where I used to, how I used to write. And hopefully, maybe, moving forward, I can write better in the future. So I'm going to try to check the comments after each part. There's 4 parts of this story, so that it could be a clear reading for everybody who's listening. Obviously, if you're new to the reading, peace, Tyler. If you're new to the reading, if you want to like skip through to each part, just pay attention to when I'm showing the screen, the reading. But other than that, I'm just going to read to you guys this Twitter thread, and then I'm going to show you what it's about, and then like just read you this story. It should be pretty quick. It shouldn't take that long. So I said I used to be a top-notch writer, and now I kind of want to get back into it. Here's a short story I wrote 6 years ago. I got some compliments yesterday, but I'd appreciate some encouraging words as I return to the craft, So I said, for your convenience, I've separated the story into 4 parts and provided a link and screenshot for each. I'm grateful if you can comment after each part. And so this is part 1 of 4. And I mean, Lero read through it today. It took her about 30 minutes. So, it shouldn't take us much longer. But, of course, I'm going to, break and stop. But also a shout out to Lero. Appreciate her for doing that. So this is the link. You could find the link. This is what the link looks like. Does my Black Life Matter? You see, it was March 5th, 2016. And this is I took the screenshots from this book over here. So this is the Pro-Black Compendium. I got 24 5-star ratings, which is pretty damn good. But yeah, so make sure you guys check that out too. All right, let's get into the book. Just like this. Let me see. I'll just switch pages, and I know I said I was going to read the comments after, but EL's here, so I said salute, and so salute EL. All right, let's go. So does my Black life matter? Does my Black life matter? Does my Black life matter? Repeated Nora Canton's brother, Kevin. Nora Canton had been gunned down 4 nights before by a white policeman as she was on her way home from a party. Kevin had himself been shot by a white policeman 2 years earlier. He cried as the community stood around candles and a framed photo and made claims to assisting his family, but he heard them 2 years earlier, and losing his support, he seriously questioned the value of his life. Yelling and tearful, a few people from Black Lives Matter and the NAACP came over to quiet him while appearing to console. Their guest speaker to his sister's memorial site had just received the mic, and the message promised to be more substantive and emotional than Kevin's. Reverend Hall waited for the crowd and Kevin to hush before enunciating, "Black Lives Matter, even yours." He nodded toward the surrounded Kevin. The gathered crowd gave a long applause amid several "Praise Jesus" from Nora and Kevin's grieving mother. The Reverend continued, "We are a strong people, for only a strong people are beaten down without giving up. After all, had not Jesus been beaten down? Had Jesus given up?" Mrs. Canton shouted, "Praise Jesus," while raising her napkin. Nora was the second child she lost. She only had Kevin and Michelle left. She had been wearing all black for 5 years now. Both Nora and Timothy had been slain by officers, and Timothy, as well as Kevin, had been publicly vilified as their shooters were excused. Yet Mrs. Canton kept her hope alive. Between chanting, "Praise Jesus," and "Black Lives Matter," Mrs. Canton was grieving or praying. Reverend Hall kept his speech going in its allotted time until an audience member had enough. "Reverend Hall? More like Reverend Hoop and Holler." Onlookers stared at the handsome man bedecked in Pan-African colors. Omawale, as he was called, ignored their glares. "Every time something happens, you come from up high to talk some bull, pardon my language, and ain't nothing changing. You are too much about reaction and not enough about action. That's why we can't roll with you." "Sir," Reverend Hall interrupted, "this is a memorial site. We can have our conversation, but you must have some respect. Like you, rebutted Omawale, a sister was slain by a, let's be honest, cracker. You think if one of us killed a cracker bitch, just calling the real bitch a bitch, that cracker would sit around talk and pray? And what would Jesus do? Or it's strength that gets us beat down? If Black Lives Matter, then how are we going to sit by and let a sister die? We need to take action. That's what I'm about. Eye for an eye. Just then, an organizer stepped to the stage. She had long braids, wore a Black Lives Matter t-shirt, and an interesting shade of lipstick. Brother, she air quoted, did you organize this? No. So you need to stop. This is not a public forum. This is a restaurant and we paying for the time. So unless you're looking to put something significant in the donation box somewhere, you need to go outside. Thank you. Omawale and 3 others, 2 men and a woman, got up and left. The organizer returned the mic to Reverend Hall, who promptly said, thanks, Latifah, as he continued his speech. Kevin and his mother had to stay. However, Latifah and 2 Black Lives Matter women went outside to confront Omawale. Expecting a quarrel, Mawuli and others rose and followed the ladies. You ain't giving a donation? Accosted Latifah, to which Omawale laughed. He pulled out a 50 and told Latifah to keep the change. She hid her delight. You can apologize, she continued. I apologize, said Omawale. He then stood there with his hands folded. He was remarkably well-mannered and well-disciplined. The confrontation didn't look good for Latifah in the least. What's more, he was much too handsome for Latifah to really be angry at him. In another life, she would be more than happy to have his arms around her as they laid in bed. Latifah was visibly daydreaming, so Omawale put his finger up to burst an imaginary bubble. We done? He asked, and Latifah asked him honestly with less confrontation in her voice. What did you hope to accomplish? Action, he responded. This is action, and you know it. This is reaction. I think they calling you. No one was calling to Latifah. Omawale was just done. Look, I know where you're coming from, but BLM is this generation's SNCC. SNCC was right. We are right. See that. We could use someone like you. Omawale snickered. Whether SNCC was right for its time is a whole other question, but this is also a whole other time. We'd be a lot farther if we took action into our own hands. You'll die. I'll kill before that happens, winked Omawale. With that, Omawale and his crew walked away from the memorial site. Latifah hid her smile and continued back towards the grieving Mrs. Canton, who had never stopped repeating, Praise Jesus! Was Latifah right? She would wrestle with that idea for months to come. The onlooker Mawuli, however, was convinced that Omawale took a man's approach, and for that, Mawuli followed Omawale and inquired about his operation. Omawale gave Mawuli an address, a time, and a plastic card, then told Mawuli to be at that address at that time, and told him to order a green smoothie with extra ice and charge it to that card. Mawuli noticed the card was fake, but assented. Omawale assured, police brutality ends with us. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna check the comments, see what the comments are like. Oh, no comments. Okay, so so that was pretty quick. What I'm gonna do is also I'm gonna show you guys what Lero, because I asked people on Twitter to comment and so on and so forth. So far only Lero commented, but I want to show you guys what she said, just so that we can just for whatever. So Lero says, Omawale seems like he means business. You do a nice job at describing the nonverbal. So of course I just told her appreciate it, sis. So that's pretty much the whole comment. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Other than that, I'm gonna jump into the next one. So this one was 4 pages. This one's gonna be only 3 pages, and it runs smoothly. Okay, so I'm gonna jump back into the reading if there's no more comments. So, and again, like I said, let me see. You guys can check it out on the Pro Black Compendium, or you can check it out on the link in the description. I put down the Twitter thread in on Twitter. So let's see. Just change the screen back and let's go. So part 2. Omawale had told Mawuli to be at an address at a certain time. Mawuli was 20 minutes early. It was cold outside, but he didn't want to wait in the store for 20 minutes. Instead, he surveyed the area. It was your typical black neighborhood, a bodega, a Chinese shop, a Trinidadian roti spot, a Dominican hair salon, 3 small churches, a pawn shop, a liquor store, a fried chicken spot, a check cashing place, several police lamps and cameras, and to Maoli's delight, a vegan shop. The vegan shop was where Maoli needed to be. Of note was the uniformed overseers standing in front of the Chinese shop, and the melanated men and women frequenting everywhere we didn't own. Maoli thought of Malcolm X's explanation of black nationalism and how we disempower ourselves by empowering others, but tried not to get lost in his thoughts. When 5 minutes were left, he headed into the vegan shop. There were 2 people ahead of him, 5 people seated, 2 cameras in the store. The store owner was a medium brown black man with gray locks and a Rastafarian hat. The cashier was a cute, dark black woman with unnatural reddish hair. Maoli looked at her curiously. She was very pretty, and thoughts of flirting came to mind, though he didn't care for her straightened hair. When it was only one person ahead of him, he reached for the card in his pocket. He thought to himself, he'd be in trouble if Omawale was messing with him. He looked again at the card. It was blue like a regular MasterCard, but it had no black strip to swipe with, and no logo to suggest it was a credit card. It was a poor forgery, and it would reflect poorly on him to this pretty sister if she figured he was playing a joke. "How may I help you?" she politely asked. "I'd like a green smoothie with extra ice." "Extra ice? We don't put ice in our green smoothies, sir." "Oh no," thought Maoli. The manager looked over to the counter. "Well, I'd like a green smoothie with extra ice." Maoli put the blue card on the table, and the woman raised her eyebrow. She held up the card to the light and looked at Maoli like he was an idiot. As she called the store owner over, Maoli said, "Never mind, my mistake," and started to walk to the door. The store owner insisted that Maoli sit down, and Maoli's curiosity got the better of him. He sat and waited to see what was going on. The store owner and the pretty sister spoke at length on the forgery, then told Maoli to wait there at a wooden table. The next guest was served. Then finally another beautiful dark sister approached Maoli. "Maoli?" she asked. "Omawale sent me to interview you." Initially angry, Maoli calmed down in the presence of this ebony queen. Her head was wrapped in a purple and gold pattern, and her lips were dark, plump, and enticing. "My name is Rehema, and I understand you are interested in transforming our nation." She had a positive introduction, but Maoli was so mesmerized it wouldn't matter how she'd introduced herself. She was stunning, black, and beautiful. The store owner and Rehema led Maoli into a back room. The owner patted Maoli's back and smiled, letting him know that the cashier and he were joking with him. Then Rehema, Maoli, and 2 large men sat in the quiet room and talked revolution. Maoli was asked about his education, formal and informal. Maoli shared an extensive reading list: Chancellor Williams, Drusilla Dungy Houston, Amos Wilson, and to the author's surprise and delight, Onitaset Kumat, to name a few. He then shared his ideas concerning an African utopia and listened intently to Rehema's vision. Finally, he suggested that his activism had been slowed down since he had broken it up with his ex. To the men in the room, it was obvious he wanted Rehema to explain her relationship status. Perhaps it was obvious to Rehema as well. But Rehema only put her hand on his shoulder, and this made the other men hide a laugh with one another. With the completion of the conversation, Rehema explained to Maoli that he could attend the actual meeting. She gave him the time and address and told him how to leave the shop. Maoli thanked her for her time, acknowledged the 2 brothers, and returned to the front of the store. "Still want your smoothie?" asked the cute cashier. She then smiled and winked at Maoli. Couldn't no one be mad at her face. Maoli made a mental note to return to the store. Then he went off clicking his heels. By serendipity, he fell upon some legit revolutionaries. Okay. So again, like I said, no comments, so that's fine. I'm going to show you guys what Lero said, and then we're going to just move forward with that. So this was comment number 2. Lero says, "No lie, I chuckled that you were on his man's reading list, but you on mine too, so I can't say shit, right? I like the whole secrecy of this organization. It's actually needed more IRL, which means in real life. Maybe we wouldn't be so prone to sabotage both internally and externally, right?" This is Baka Omobo, but he's now Eku Lele Omobo. He says, "An elder taught me to do your work under the radar. I heed this message. Limelight and lack of checks F's up every single black organization. Ain't making the same mistake. Let me make sure you guys can see the screen. Yeah. And then I'll just read to you guys what I responded to it with, which was, I picked that up from Sister Soldier. Basically, in the coldest winter ever, she put herself in the story, and I thought that was cool. I tried to make Maoli observant too, peep his knowing how many cameras there were. Then I asked her how was the pacing, right? But she went on to read the next story. So we're just gonna click it, and then we're gonna go back to the next story. So this part is actually much longer than it's like 7 pages, but it's pretty good. Brother Bakari says, "What's up?" So peace, Brother Bakari. You're gonna like this this part 3. So part 3 is going to be basically what I'm doing is I'm just reading through my story, but I know some people might want to listen to the playback, so I'm just gonna try to rush through it. Let's go. So this is part 3. So all right, just to catch up everybody. Maoli observed this guy Omawale, and then Omawale invited him to a secret meeting where he was interviewed, and he was told that he can now attend the real meeting. And so this is the real meeting, right? So part 3, it was a private home with a sign in front stating the front door was inoperable. Maoli was 10 minutes early, yet preferred earliness over walking around a residential area. He knocked on the back door and was let in by Omawale. "Rehema told me you passed." Maoli thought about Rehema and thought to ask whether Rehema was in attendance. She greeted him before he had the chance and told him to have a seat. Maoli noticed the cashier lady, and though preferring Rehema, accepted her invitation to sit beside her. Looking around the room, he noticed 23 people and thought it was early. Omawale said, "We expect one more," and 1 minute to the appointed time, the last guest arrived. "We can begin," announced Omawale. Maoli studied everyone. Complexions and countenances ranged the gamut, yet he had to question if anyone was really black, as he never knew a black meeting to start on time. Needless to say, everyone was very African, and to him, ready for revolution. Omawale began with an introduction as Rehema went around offering seeded grapes and water to the guests. "My name is Omawale," he began, "and I am a warrior." A few people laughed. They either heard Omawale say this before, or they like Maoli thought of the Alcoholics Anonymous introduction. Omawale continued, "Now I want everyone in this room to make it clear whether they are warriors or warriors." One of the men Maoli met at the store teased, "Explain the difference," to which Omawale explained, "A warrior is for war, but a warrior, well, if you that, then I'll be worried." The veterans laughed. That's my son, the djembe. All right. One by one, 23 people repeated their names and that they were warriors. It was discovered in this process that of the 24, 14 were as new as Maoli. Notably, 12 of those 14 were men. Interestingly, of the 10 veterans, half were men, making a total of 17 men and 7 women. Maoli, ever playing with numbers, partly wished to consider a social implication. However, ever the single type, he also wondered what odds he had with the 2 women he had his eyes on. He took a lapse in Omawale's introduction to compliment the cashier beside him. "Ife is a beautiful name." She responded, "I thought so too." She observed that Maoli was confused. "It's not my government." As Maoli tried to wrap his head around her response, Omawale interrupted. "Brother, what are you here for?" Maoli sat back, and Omawale continued talking. He spoke about the conditions of Africans in America, the lack of resources, the need for land, the broken economic structure, and the police state we are under. He then pulled a police-issued Glock from his back pocket and cocked it. "It's time we fight back. Who is ready?" All eyes were at attention when one man, a newcomer, said, "Can't we just build up our economic base?" A veteran shouted to Omawale, "Didn't you ask for the warriors to come out?" "I thought I did. Seems some people are only warriors when they don't need to kill." "There's more than one way to bring war," offered the warrior. "Yeah, you got that from the cracker?" "No, from history," the warrior rebutted. "Did this fool say his story?" asked the same veteran. "Did he say he got that from the cracker story? Or was there another his that he didn't mention?" People laughed. "No, history," repeated the warrior. Omawale dismissed, "Yeah, warrior's history," then asked, "Does anyone else feel like this so-called man?" Another 2 men raised their hands. "Cowards!" the three of you, the cowards, the three of you, get out right now. As they rose, Omwale said, ladies, look, there are the black men of today, your so-called protectors. They would not kill for you, yet even low-life crackers would kill for their women. These are the men who claim manhood, and what kind of men are they? Cowards! The three men retreated their separate ways. However, Mawuli stayed seated. Though things moved quickly, he, like many other black men, feel waiting around to be fruitless. Ife bumped her knee on his. She had liked his bravery. You who stayed, continued Omawale, are men, but not just men of words, but men of action. With that, Omawale nodded to Rehema. Sister, if you would take the sisters into the next room, we men need to discuss things. Rehema requested all the women to rise and head to the back porch. As they did so, Mawuli's eyes followed them, especially Ife. He had never seen her from the back, and now seizing the opportunity, he was very glad he did. When the women were out, Omawale congratulated the remaining men for their bravery. You have distinguished yourselves. However, boasting at home is not valor. Parade is not battle. When war comes, the brave will be known. To stand your ground in front of the women was commendable. However, we're men, we must do men things. I'll give you guys 5 hours to think seriously about what your next course of action will be. Return here at 10 p.m. if you are truly about war. If you don't return, no harm done. But look around, newcomers. I do not expect to see all 9 of you in 5 hours. I expect to see these 4 brothers, but not all 9 of you. And when I don't see you again, don't let me ever see you again. The group was dismissed, and Mawole looked around as though he was curious to discover where the women were. Mwale detected Mawole's predation and explained to him, consider deeply what is expected of you. You understand what's going on, right? Of course, reacted Mawole. He had already made up his mind to return in 5 hours. He wondered if the other 8 brothers intended to as well. There was only one way to find out. To kill time, Mawole hopped on a bus and returned to the vegan shop. He asked the owner about what was going down at 10 p.m., but the owner responded that he had no idea. It appears as though he only allowed the revolutionaries to use his space because of Ife, yet he wasn't himself organized with the group. Mawole ordered falafel and fries and purchased a bottle of water. The food filled him, and Mawole thanked the owner. He inquired about Ife and was informed that she should be coming in shortly, so he took out his copy of the ISIS Papers by Francis Cress Welsing and read his fill before she arrived. She had to work, but Mawole had to speak to her, so he ordered a smoothie and told her his opinion of Omawale. He's a real man, he said. So I'm going to stop for a moment because Lero commented, essentially there was 4 pages. On Twitter, you can only, let me share my screen. On Twitter, you could only do 4 pages at a time. And so this whole chapter was three pages. So Lero commented after the first 3, so I'm just going to read her comment. She says, aha, okay, this is great. So official and serious Omawale is. Mawole brought the tool out on fools. Like, okay. So I think she's talking about the Francis Cress Welsing book. Although I was meaning to ask. Let me see what the comments are like. I see that I have a few comments, so I'm going to see what the comments are like. EL says, we need to test people in our organization to make sure they are not traitors. We would test them by tempting them to betray the organization. EL says, too many black organizations were betrayed by an infiltrator. Yup, that's it. That's facts. Sankara came through. He says, peace, brothers. So let me just fill in Sankara. Basically, this brother named Mawuli, he sees this brother named Omawale. Omawale's nice, talking, like he invited him to a revolutionary organization, and in this organization they're told that, you know, they have to be seriously about war, and so now they're supposed to meet up again at 10 o'clock if they're serious, and if they're not serious, then they could just stay out, no harm done, right? So you know, sometimes you got to give people an out, but sometimes you don't. Let me see something. So the comments go, Brother Bakari says, I agree with the brother, let's fight back. That's it. All right, so now we're going to go back into the story. Let's see. Yeah, she smiled. So let me just tell you what the guy said. He says, he's a real man, he said. And so Rehema says, yeah, she smiled. She followed with, I'm sure you are too. They conversed for a while. It was short but lively. Ife admitted that many men never return after their first meeting, but she can sense an intensity and genuineness in Mawole that she is sure he will become a veteran like her. Mauli assured her that he would be committed to the organization and her. Eventually, Mauli looked at the time. "I'd love to see you again, but I have to go. We have a meeting," he blabbed. Ife was notably prettier since the revolutionary meeting, almost as if her straightened hair didn't mean a thing. "Should I come here every day or should I call you?" "You can do both." With her number in his phone, Mauli headed back to the meeting spot. It was time to do men things, or at least find out what was meant by it. It was 9:41 when Mauli showed to the spot. Omawale remarked on how he didn't expect any newcomers to show, yet 2 other brothers were already in. The group talked amongst themselves as 2 more brothers showed. When the clock struck 10, Omawale raised his fist and said, "It's 10 o'clock." The room fell silent. 5 out of 9 is not bad. Does anyone know what we're going to do?" The 5 men looked around. Omawale continued, pulling out his gun again. "We're going to kill a cracker." The men smiled and cheered. None were sure what Omawale had in mind, but it was too late to back down or ask questions. This was all new to them. Whether they were to assassinate someone or attack a random hillbilly was unclear. Then Omawale told 2 of the veterans, "Get him," and things were becoming clearer. In short time, a heavily bruised, tied up, mouth gagged, and blindfolded white man was forced into the room with the newcomers. He put up very little resistance, and his whole demeanor was that of one who was a broken man. Another veteran went to each newcomer and handed him a pistol. Omawale explained what was to go on. "When crackers want to execute someone, they have many gunners, but only 1 gun with a bullet. This way, no one can say who was the executioner, because no one knows whose gun killed the bastard." Hearing this, the cracker squirmed much, but he was easily restrained by the 2 other brothers. "Of the 5 of you, only 1 of you has a gun with a bullet. This cracker needs to die. To prove yourself as a revolutionary, you're going to have to shoot your gun at this cracker. We'll see the smoke. And if 1 of you punks out, there's a chance this cracker will live. So now is the time for you all to make your stand." The veteran restraining the cracker pulled off his blindfold and his mouth gag. "Please don't. I have a kid. I have a family, please," the cracker remonstrated. "Ready?" Omawale shouted. "Aim," he demanded. 4 of the newcomers aimed. "Aim," repeated Omawale. All 5 had their pistols facing the cracker. "Oh no, this does not need to happen." 3, the cracker squirmed. 2, the cracker remonstrated and pled. 1, it was too late to turn back. "Fire!" 5 gunshots and billows of smoke filled the air. Behind the smoke, Mauli noticed the cracker untying himself from the ropes. He also noticed blue paint on his hand from the gun. "Freeze, police!" said the cracker, holding a badge and a gun. Omawale pointed his gun and badge at the would-be executioner. "Hands in the air," he urged. The 4 other veterans also pulled out. 8 confused hands flew to the sky. Half of them were blue from the paint. Mauli wasn't as hopeless. He understood the gifted weapon was a fake, but his motto was ABC, always be carrying. Mauli took his 9 from his back pocket and slayed the cracker. He then pointed his gun at Omawale, the bastard who was betraying his race. The 2 of them shot a few rounds at each other's torso. Omawale, however, was wearing the vest. Okay. All right. So let me see what the comments are like. I'm gonna jump to Lero's comment. So, appreciate Lero for commenting on the story. Oh crap, they didn't even show. Oh no, right, this was part 3. So this was where she was. She says, "Wait, what the you are insane for this. What a turn of events. Buddy is 12. I mean, it did seem sus for him to be like, hey, here's Pole, smoke this random cracker, we got tied up. But bruh, that's these tussle with the gun smoke. So they said, insane the membrane. The character is actually from the vignette I wrote. Might as well give our people insight into the games others play. I'm gonna name names. So yeah, later on I'm gonna name names. So like I said, the vignette that Omawale, he's actually a part of this one. Zubiri in the Moons of My Eye, which it sells so poorly that it's now on like 62%. Anyway, but it was also another 5-star. I think this was like all 5 stars, right? Yeah, 100% 5 stars. Really good story, but it's very short, so I can see why people ain't really trying to buy it. But anyway, let's see what the comments are like, because I think I see more comments in the chat. So EL says, I like that you name our thought leaders. Oh yeah, definitely. That was back in the day. You guys didn't see okay, there's no comments on the other thing, but yeah, that happened. That's the cautiousness that we like. That's the reality of the situation, and so I'm gonna name some names as we move forward. So all right, let's go back to the writing. Let me see. Hold on a second. Yeah, so we're gonna go to part 4, and this is the last part. So when Latifah heard of another killing of black youth, she, BLM, and the NAACP scrambled. The media had claimed Mawuli was a radical black militant who killed a policeman in the streets. Several black paid witnesses verified the untrue story. The NAACP refused to rally behind Mawuli, and BLM nearly did as well, but Latifah had recognized Mawuli from Nora Canton's memorial, and she convinced her chapter to rally anyway. After all, white people shot and killed police, but were usually taken in alive. At the memorial, none other than undercover Omawale and his crew showed up. The unknown killer feigned his revolutionary act once more, harassing the same reverend who, as would be revealed in 20 years, was also on the police payroll. "Sir," repeated Reverend Hall, "this is a memorial site. Must you make that noise here of all places? We need action, not prayers." Omawale's repetition reminded Latifah about his former audacity. She walked over to him. "Peace, sister," he greeted. "Come outside. I want to ask you something." They exited. She continued, "Didn't you know Mawuli?" "Only briefly." "How briefly? Is this an interrogation? Are you a cop or something?" Omawale ironically asked. "No," Latifah said truthfully. "I just figured you'd recognize him. Do you know what group he could have been a part of? The media is saying he was a radical militant. Did he say anything?" Just then another sister interrupted. "Omawale, there you are," shouted Ife, dressed entirely in white, the color of grief. She also wore her hair in its natural state. Mawuli had confided a preference to it. Peace, sister. Are you here from Mawuli too?" "Of course." "They were calling us radicals," Ife admitted in earshot of Latifah. "I doubt they meant us," Omawale explained. "You know crackers lie." "So you don't think he killed a cop?" "I don't know, but if he did, it had nothing to do with us." "They said the killing happened the same day as the meeting." "Let's talk about this another time. We have a guest. You never know who is a fed." Latifah? She ain't no police. We're friends. I'd know if she were police." "By the time the fool learns how the game is played, the players have dispersed," Omawale quipped. After a brief silence, Ife asked, "What we going to do about this?" "What we always do." "But we can't let the police take one of ours." "Mawuli wasn't one of ours." "Didn't he return?" "Nope." "But he told me he would. He assured me." "I didn't see him. Maybe he was a fake." Without a community, you never know who's who. It's sometimes the ones most down for the struggle who are most down with the enemy. With that, Ife turned away from Omawale. "Maybe," she cried. She wouldn't say she loved Mawuli, yet she knew she could have loved him, eventually. She felt something was amiss in Omawale's interpretation of events. She was certain Mawuli headed back to the meeting. Or was Mawuli lying about everything? Latifah consoled her. She could see Ife had something from Mawuli, and she felt Omawale was not saying something, but what was unsaid she would never know in her lifetime. "Do you see what violence does?" She looked intently at Omawale. "The cracker is violent with us. We're not the initiators." Omawale effortlessly continues his charade, easily ranking among other public race traitors like Charles Barron, Al Sharpton, Reverend Daughtry, and Jesse Jackson, to name a few. Latifah told Ife to head inside with her and gave Omawale one last piece of advice. "Just don't get killed." To which Omawale responded, very assuredly, once again, "I'll kill before that happens." So impressed was a young man with Omawale's demeanor and vision that he received a card from Omawale with instructions on where to order a roti with no chickpeas at a different address from where Ife worked. Within a month, that same impressed youth would be in a jail awaiting trial for the attempted murder of a white man. Omawale remains at large. So that's the story. Bit of Medicine says peace. We're gonna switch over to this other screen, and that's the whole story. So I don't know how long that took. Looks like it could have been 35 minutes. That's not bad. I'll just see if anything else. So I said thanks for reading to everybody. This was in the thread. Thanks for reading. If you enjoyed, please retweet the original post. I welcome feedback. It's been a long time since I was able to write this well, and I'm eager to return and improve. If you want to support, please consider getting my vignette. This is what Lero said. Lero said, OMG, this is so good. What a sick and perverted brand of Ascario Mawale was. Like, I'm lost for words, for real. You're a great storyteller. We need more for real, for real. I loved it and wished it was longer. So thanks, sis. Such a sweet thing to say. I forgot that I could write once upon a time. I hope I can get back into the craft, but your words are definitely encouraging me to return. That's it. So like I said, if you want to get, obviously if you want the story is in the Pro Black Compendium. I just read from the Pro Black Compendium. Otherwise, you could read Zubiri. That was my original attempt at fiction. It's really a really good book. You can see, obviously, 10 perfect scores. But it's not really selling too much. So, it could just be like 10 people bought it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody bought it who liked it. But, it is what it is. Finally, obviously, you can get the Book of Power. This is my magnus opus so far. I'm going to work on some new literature. I'm going to work on some new non-literature, some non-fiction. But obviously, if you want to support, you can do that. Beyond that, of course, support the KWZ Radio Network and everybody that's on it, including obviously Brother Bakari and Bitter Medicine, Forecast, Tanzan, Learning Curve, and of course the Harsh Reality Podcast. But other than that, I appreciate everybody taking out some time. If you didn't catch the whole story, you could obviously rewind, play back. I just wanted to record it and see how everybody would react. But thank you for your time, and of course, until next time, Shem Yam Hotep, Anku Ja Seneb Neb, Amen, Ma'at Dua Necher.